All right, welcome back to Food Service Management, where this week we are going to talk about quick service restaurants, or as you might call them, fast food restaurants. This is a quick lecture. We'll just simply be going over some of the history, some of the characteristics of quick service restaurants, the employee, and some fun facts about them. All right, so our first quick service restaurant was a White Castle in 1921, and they served 5-cent or nickel hamburgers. And the way that they got their name, they're called sliders. They were so easy to eat, they called them sliders because you could just slide them in your mouth. And if you've ever been to White Castle, they're very small burgers. People usually eat like 6 or 7 of them. They cook them very quickly because the patties are tenderized. I'm sorry, not tenderized, but they're perforated. So they have holes in them. And so they sear them on the bottom, they put a cover on top of them, and then they steam the top of them. And that's how they cook so quickly. All right, so that's 1921. Then in 1937, Dick and Maurice McDonald opened a hot dog stand. Okay, so no hamburgers, no French fries, hot dog stand in Arcadia, California. And it was a typical drive-in food stand where patrons kind of waited in their cars. So people would come, they would sit in their cars, they would place their order, and then car hops would come out to them and deliver the food to them. But then in 1948, they kind of took a look at their business and decided they could make some efficiency changes. And they designed a purpose-built restaurant in San Bernardino, and it was focused on hamburgers and French fries because they realized that that was the majority of their sales. They had all these other things on the menu, but hamburgers, French fries, that is what their guests were ordering. All right, so this McDonald's was still it's still anticipated that the customer would drive by car, but it was unique for that era due to a combination of factors. All right, so first off, the design deliberately omitted an interior dining area. Okay, so it was the guest walked up there, they got their food, and then wherever they ate it, they ate it. All right, and this minimize their need for wait staff or attendants to clean up that area or set it up, or just the upkeep of a dining room where you've got to mop it and clean it every single day, and there's repairs to chairs and things like that. There was no wait staff, again, because we didn't need it. And orders were taken by a person at the front counter where the food was also delivered. Okay, so it took the work out of the restaurant and really kind of put it on the customer. So the customer comes up, they place their order, and then they're the ones that take it to themselves. The brothers also designed the kitchen area themselves, integrating their acquired knowledge into an assembly line system layout that maximized efficiency and output. Okay, so when you watch the movie The Founder and you see how they designed this, they really put a lot of thought into the system to make sure it was as efficient as possible given the space that they had. Now, they call the system the Speedy system, all right? So just like an assembly line in Detroit, they are going to, each person has, if you've ever seen cars being built, okay, the car comes through and there's one person that puts a bolt on the door and the same bolt on the door. And they're not doing 5 different things. They're quickly just putting one item in there, and then the car keeps moving. Okay. And so they took this system, they put it to use in restaurants. And so they thought about how they could make a linear workflow for their burgers, which is what they were primarily selling. So first off, they picked a very large grill where one person could cook a lot of burgers simultaneously. So if you've ever grilled or seen a flat top, you know that you can throw probably 15, 20 burgers down there and you can manage them. But let's say you're sauteing something, you can only saute as many pans as you have, as well as how many burners that you have. And it's going to require a lot more management from you as that grill person. There was also a dressing station where people added the same condiments to every burger. So if you think about a standard operating procedure, something that's very consistent, this allowed for each burger to have the exact same texture, flavor components, exact same thing. People knew what to expect when they get this burger. There was a fryer where one person made French fries. Okay, so instead of mashed potatoes where we've got to peel them and mash them and scoop them out, right? We're dropping 3 to 4 pounds of mashed potatoes at a time. If we are very consistent, if we're temping our oil and we are working that station properly, again, the food's very consistent. And it's very easy for one person to man a fry station and produce a lot of fries. Then there's also a soda fountain and a milkshake machine for desserts and beverages. So prior to this, people had like baked goods or cakes or pies where you'd have to scoop them out, and maybe it took up a lot of counter space where you have to display these things, a display case. And the soda fountain was very easy to serve these items. They didn't have to open any bottles. And the milkshake machine, again, you're just scooping the ice cream, making those milkshakes, serving it to the guest. And then also the counter where customers placed and received their orders. So some characteristics for our quick service restaurants, okay? A little bit different than what we expect in fine dining. You'd have purposefully uncomfortable seating, okay? We are not expecting our guests to sit there, and we don't need them to sit there. If you're in fine dining, we want them to sit there because the longer they sit there, the more they order. They have an additional glass of wine. They have dessert. They have things that they order things that generate revenue for us, where in quick service restaurants, you've placed your order, you're probably not getting anything else. And the longer you sit there, really you're just refilling your soda or just taking up space. We also see that we can make minimal adjustments to the dining floor. So we're not expecting large groups of people to come in there. Our dining room is not as accommodating to large groups and families as fine dining might be. We've got drink stations that minimize labor. Okay, so you don't have to staff a person to make drinks for people. You can go ahead and the guest does it themselves. Quickly back to the adjustments on the dining room floor. Just a quick note about playlands. So we used to see a lot of different playscapes and playgrounds and things to encourage guests to bring their kids into quick service. And they really found that it's not a revenue generator. If anything, it's a huge expense because you'll have to staff someone to man this playscape that's really not making you any additional money. There's sanitation issues. I could pretty much guarantee you that if my children went into a playscape the next day that they were always sick. So you're going to see a lot of quick service restaurants when they rebuild or let's say there's damage done to them, they're not going to repair them. Those are probably going to start to go away. They also put our quick service restaurants, they're up in high traffic areas. Okay. Again, a lot of our business is done through the drive-through. This is supposed to be a quick, easy bite. We see them on highways, side of the road, places where people are driving, where there's a lot of guests. And a lot of recognizable buildings or brandings. So we see the Golden Arches. We can identify a Burger King. We can identify a Dairy Queen, all these different places. I can tell you that my kids could identify different quick service restaurants before they could read. Okay, so they could see that was a McDonald's, even though they couldn't read McDonald's. And that's really done on purpose. So we can see these things from a mile away. We can make plans. We can decide kind of in our brain that we want to stop and we want to eat there. All right, a little bit about quick service food. Quick service food, we see that it is very often high fat, high salt, and high sugar content. And the reason for that is that it pretty much always tastes good. If I make a burger that's 90% lean meat, 10% fat, I'm going to have to cook it very perfectly in order for it to not be dry. But if I have a burger that's like 50-50, 60-40, I can make that thing well done. I can forget about it on the grill and it will still be pretty moist and delicious. So we can see that one, our items are going to cook consistently, but we don't have to employ trained chefs in the kitchen. We can employ someone who can follow a timer and follow different standards of like cooking standards that we have. So we can make this food that tastes good. It's very forgivable. All right. So if it's high fat, high salt, and high sugar, it tastes good. I don't want to say no matter what, but it's pretty hard to screw those items up. We're also going to find that food is cooked to par and not to order. So when that you order that burger, it might take 10 minutes to prepare, but it's already ready for you. So they have a number of burgers or sandwiches or fries that they always want ready in the window so that when you come up, they can go ahead and they can grab that and get it out to you. Minimal utensils are needed. So this is where we find the spork. It kind of is very multi-purpose, but again, we're putting these items in packaging that is the plate and it's disposable. Our freshness is minimal. We utilize a lot of freezer items, not as much fresh product. Again, you're going to see these food quick service restaurants and food deserts, so it's harder to get some of those fresh items out anyways. The mass production is easier. Many quick service restaurants, McDonald's, Burger King, they're going to have very large commissaries that distribute their brand of product out. Whataburger has a bakery. I'm sure that McDonald's does too. So all these products are very consistent. And then easier to mass produce. And then their purchasing power is also much stronger because they have so many different locations. And then we're going to see that our food comes with more gimmicks. I mean, we see Happy Meals. We see, McDonald's had Monopoly. You see different games, different packaging, just to bring people in. So the employee at a quick service job, here's an example of a job description that I found on Indeed. So someone who is going to work in quick service, first off, they're going to find themselves assembling and packing food orders and carry out containers in large bags. Okay, so that person has to have knowledge of the menu, be able to identify the products, work with them quickly, utilize a checklist, and make sure that they have a good eye for detail. Because if you've ever gone through a drive-through or something and they've forgotten some of your food or they've gotten it wrong, it's pretty frustrating. So we need an employee that can follow those checklists and those tasks. Our employees are also going to assist cooks with food preparation. They'll be taking payments for food orders and providing correct change. Okay, so they have to be good at cash handling. They have to be good with conversing with the guest or the customer. They have to answer questions about that menu while they're working with that POS system. They have to be able to give good eye contact and smile. The person who is taking the food orders is also the hostess or the greeter. So they're usually one of the first people that you're going to interact with when you walk into a food service or a quick service restaurant. They're also responsible for cleaning tables and dining areas. So we don't have bussers. That is typically the work of all the employees in that establishment. They'll stock the condiments and the beverage stations, making sure that sanitation practices are followed. They're wiping things down, making everything, again, eye for detail, making everything look appealing as the guest walks in. They're also going to take customer orders via the telephone or mobile apps. All right, so we see a lot of our food is not eaten inside those restaurants. We have drive-throughs. And so some fun facts about drive-throughs. I don't know if they're fun, but they're definitely facts. The average wait time in a drive-through is 181 seconds. So it's about 3 minutes. I challenge you next time you get in a drive-through, see how long it takes from the time that you order that, you place the order to when you get your food. Now, Wendy's does have the quickest drive-through service at 130 seconds. They were able to shave about a minute off of that. And I will say that with my experience at Wendy's versus other restaurants, they are definitely the fastest. and I'd love to find out exactly why. Chick-fil-A has the most accurate drive-through service, and that is large part in the fact that an actual person is standing there and takes your order. So when they have someone out there with that iPad, that increases their accuracy as well as it increases their volume by 30% because it's much faster for them to process those orders. The orders are, again, they're correct, so they're not seeing a lot of people coming back with errors, and they can move a lot more people through. The first drive-through was at Red's Giant Hamburg in 1947. And In-N-Out is the longest standing quick service restaurant with a drive-through. So In-N-Out versus Whataburger, In-N-Out did have the first drive-through. They utilized something called a two-way speaker box, kind of like the walkie-talkie you might have had when you were growing up. We also see that the original Jack in the Box was a drive-through only concept, did not have any means for the guests to dine inside, and I believe not even to walk up. And the McDonald's did not open a drive-through until 1975, and 70% of our sales for quick service restaurants are through drive-throughs. All right, well, that's about it for this lecture. For this week's assignment, I do believe you might have one or two articles to read, but you are going to watch the movie The Founder. This is one of my favorite movies, and there will be a quiz associated with it in Canvas. And make sure you pay special attention to the speedy system part. Again, it's my favorite part of the movie. I will say that when I was in the industry, that kind of exercise is something we did a lot. So it's very realistic for food service managers to do something like that. And you might see it in another assignment somewhere else. You should be able to find the movie on different streaming services. But if you can't, I do have a DVD copy in the library to check out if you have access to a DVD player. Otherwise, again, it's on other streaming services. All right, well, that's it for this week. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you at the next lecture.